Marcus Johnson pedaled his old blue bicycle down Cedar Lane just after sunset. The sky was a warm orange, and the air smelled of cut grass and blooming flowers. His legs felt strong from basketball practice, and he hummed a tune as he coasted. Past neat lawns and tidy houses, school was over and summer break had begun. Marcus looked forward to a night of video games with his little sister and a cold glass of lemonade waiting at home. He could almost taste the sweet drink as he rounded the corner where Pine Street met Cedar Lane. As Marcus came closer to the intersection, he noticed a strange sound. It was not the usual bird song or distant music from someone's backyard. Instead, it was a sharp, tearing noise followed by a loud crash. His heart skipped a beat. He stopped pedaling and listened. There it was, again, a thud of metal on wood and the sickening sound of glass shattering. Marcus dropped the pedals and ran toward the noise, leaving his bike to clatter onto its side on the pavement. When he reached the spot, he saw Officer Alina Thompson's patrol car lying on its side against an old oak tree. The front windshield was cracked in a spiderweb pattern, and shards of glass lay scattered across the road like glitter.
Ow.
The driver's door hung open.
Ow. No.
Smoke rose from the engine, curling into the last rays of sunlight. Officer Thompson lay on the ground, her uniform dusty and stained with dirt. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. One of her arms was pinned under the door. She was conscious, but her eyes fluttered with pain and confusion. Marcus's heart pounded. He had never felt so scared in his life, but he also felt a strong urge to help. He took a deep breath and ran forward. He knelt beside the officer and said, "Don't worry, ma'am. I'm here to help." His voice trembled slightly, but he tried to sound calm and confident. He reached for her wrist and found a faint pulse. That small beat gave him hope that she would be okay. He looked around for something to use as a bandage. His basketball jersey lay crumpled on the ground, where he had dropped it at practice. He peeled it off and folded it to make a thicker pad. Then he took a few strips of the cloth and pressed them gently against the cut on her forehead. Soaked into the fabric, but after a moment, the bleeding slowed. Marcus was careful not to press too hard. He whispered, "Hold on. You're doing great." Slowly, Marcus tried to ease the car door off her arm. It was heavy and stuck fast. He pressed his hands against the metal, pushing with all his strength. He remembered how he learned to lift weights at school, and he used that strength now. He braced his feet against the pavement and pushed again. With a loud creak, the door gave way just enough for him to pull her arm free. She winced, but she did not cry out. Marcus looked up and saw some neighbors peering from their windows and front porches. An older woman in a floral dress hurried down her steps and stood beside him, her face full of worry. She called for someone to dial 911. A man with a lawnmower slowed his machine and switched it off, leaving a sharp hum hanging in the air. Everyone seemed frozen, waiting to see if the officer would be all right. Marcus felt both proud and nervous. He had done what he could, but he knew he needed help soon. He knelt back beside Officer Thompson and used his phone to call 911. His fingers shook as he tapped the numbers. "Hello, yes, there's been a car accident," he said, voice clear and loud. "A police officer is injured. The car's against a tree at Cedar Lane and Pine Street. Please hurry." He gave the dispatcher the exact location, his voice steadying as he spoke. He ended the call and tucked his phone into his pocket. While they waited, Marcus kept talking to the officer. "You're going to be okay? Help is on the way. Just stay with me." He tried to smile, but his lips felt tight. He noticed the officer's hand resting on the pavement and reached out to hold it. She squeezed his hand back, and for a moment, Marcus felt a connection between them. It gave him strength to keep going, to remain calm, even as his mind raced. Suddenly faint. Sounds of sirens drifted down the street. A red fire engine arrived first. Firefighters jumped out and began securing the scene. They placed bright orange cones around the patrol car and checked for leaking fluids. An ambulance followed close behind. 2 paramedics lifted a stretcher and hurried to the officer's side. Marcus rose and stepped back, giving them room to work. One paramedic knelt beside Officer Thompson and lifted the cloth from her forehead to assess her injury. The other checked her neck and spine, carefully sliding a protective collar around her neck. Marcus watched as they worked together, each person moving with purpose. The paramedic spoke softly to the officer, asking simple questions. Marcus recognized that tone from videos he had seen about first aid training. He felt proud that he had helped keep her calm. The paramedics loaded her onto the stretcher and then carried her to the ambulance. Marcus stood close by, his heart swelling. With relief and a little bit of pride, he had helped save her life. As the ambulance doors closed, the crowd of neighbors pushed forward with questions and praise. Someone handed Marcus his bicycle back. He stood holding the handful of grass he had picked for his sister earlier. Mrs. Cornell, the woman who lived next door, put her hand on his shoulder and said, "You were very brave, Marcus. You did exactly the right thing." Other neighbors nodded and murmured their agreement. Marcus shrugged, feeling shy under so many eyes. He tried to smile. A police cruiser came up behind the ambulance. Officer Mason, a tall man with a kind face, stepped out, approached Marcus, and knelt beside him. "Son, are you all right?" he asked gently. Marcus nodded. "You did a great job helping Officer Thompson," the officer continued. "You stayed calm and saved her life. Thank you." Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. He managed to whisper, "I just wanted to help." Officer Mason patted his shoulder and called over the lead paramedic. He explained to his team what Marcus had done. A police captain arrived soon after, straightening his uniform and carrying a notepad. He took notes and asked Marcus to repeat what had happened. Marcus told the story again, his words flowing more easily this time. He described how he heard the crash, ran over, made a bandage, and called 911. The captain nodded and said, "You were right there when we needed help. You deserve our thanks." Just then, a white patrol car with lights flashing rolled up and blocked the street. 2 more officers jumped out and hurried toward Marcus. One of them, Officer Grant, looked serious. He asked Marcus to show his hands and spoke into his radio. Marcus's heart froze. His mind raced. He had helped save an officer's life. Why? Were these new officers pointing at him and talking among themselves? Before he could say anything, one officer moved toward him and snapped on a pair of handcuffs. Marcus felt a cold shock run through his body. He cried out, "Wait, I'm the one who helped her." His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Neighbors gasped. Mrs. Cornell and Officer Mason tried to step forward, but Officer Grant held up a hand. He said, "Stay back, please." The handcuffs bit into Marcus's wrists. His palms burned as the metal dug into his skin. Neighbors rushed forward, voices raised in protest. Mrs. Cornell cried out, "He saved her life. What are you doing?" Marcus's bike clattered to the ground. He looked around, panic in his eyes. "I was helping," he repeated. His voice trembled. Officer Grant ignored him and guided Marcus toward the back of the patrol car. As they led him away, Marcus's world spun. The warm evening air felt cold and cruel. He looked back at Officer Thompson's ambulance, lights flashing in the dusk. He hoped she would be okay and wondered why he was being treated this way. His chest tightened with fear and confusion. People's faces blurred as he was pushed into the police car. His mind raced with questions he could not answer. He understood that the next few moments would change everything for him. ChatGPT said, moments after the ambulance pulled away, the street was quiet again, except for the fading wail of the siren. Marcus stood near his fallen bicycle, heart still pounding from the rescue, watched the ambulance speed down Cedar Lane, lights reflecting off the car's shiny surface. He felt relief that Officer Thompson was in safe hands. He straightened the straps on his backpack and turned to head home, wiping sweat from his forehead. Then he heard a firm voice behind him say, "Stop right there." Marcus froze. He looked back and saw a line of uniformed officers advancing toward him with purpose in their steps. Their badges gleamed under the street lamp, and their faces were serious. One officer barked, "Keep your hands where I can see them." Confusion froze Marcus's legs. He lifted his hands slowly, fingers trembling. "What's wrong?" he asked, voice small. He took a step back, uneasy at how quickly everything had shifted. An officer with a stocky build pushed forward. He wore a dark cap low over his eyes. His name tag read Officer Grant. He pointed at Marcus and said, "You kid. You were near the crash. Witnesses say you attacked the officer."
Marcus's mouth fell open.
No, that's not true, he stammered. I helped her. I saved her life. He lifted one hand as if to show it was empty. I called 911. I pulled her from the car. The officer did not move. Officer Grant scanned the street as if expecting someone else. His partner stepped beside him and crossed his arms. Partner glanced at Marcus and back to the patrol car. He tapped something on his radio. Suspect in custody, he said softly. Then he turned to Marcus. Hands behind your back. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He looked around, desperate for help. Some neighbors watched from their front porches, eyes wide and mouths open. Mrs. Cornell, the woman who had praised him moments before, stood frozen, her hand over her heart. Marcus lowered his hands slowly, wondering how he should comply. He bent one arm behind him. Please, he said, voice shaky. I didn't do anything wrong. The officer ignored him. He reached forward and snapped a pair of silver handcuffs open. Marcus tried to twist away, but the officer grabbed his wrist and forced it behind Marcus's back. Metal clicked around his wrists. The cold steel bit into his skin. Marcus winced. A knot of fear and anger formed in his chest. Shh. You have to listen to me, he said, voice louder now. I was the one who helped her. You can ask anyone. But Officer Grant held him firmly. We're under arrest for assaulting a police officer, he said. His partner guided Marcus toward the back of the cruiser. Marcus's legs shook with each step. He felt like he was walking into a nightmare. Mrs. Cornell rushed forward. Stop! He saved her life, she cried. Her voice cracked with emotion. You're making a terrible mistake. But Officer Grant waved her away. Stay back, ma'am, he said softly. His partner placed a hand on Mrs. Cornell's shoulder. Please step aside, he said. She stared at Marcus, tears in her eyes. Marcus saw her lips moving, but could not hear her words over the pounding in his head. Marcus's mother and younger sister came running down the sidewalk, alerted by the commotion. His mother, Mrs. Johnson, was a small woman with kind eyes. She carried her purse and a grocery bag in one hand. When she saw Marcus in handcuffs, she froze for a moment, then ran forward. What are you doing to my son? She demanded. She reached out, but an officer stepped between them. Ma'am, please step back, he said. Mrs. Johnson's voice trembled. He's innocent. He saved an officer's life. Officer Grant shifted his gaze to Mrs. Johnson. His expression softened slightly, but he did not release Marcus. Ma'am, I know this looks bad, he said. We have a report that your son attacked an officer. We need to clear this up at the station. Mrs. Johnson's face turned pale. She opened her mouth to protest, but tears fell as she whispered, No, no. Her younger daughter, Mia, clung to her skirt and buried her face. Marcus's mind raced. He thought of Officer Thompson lying injured, the blood on his shirt, the way he had felt rushing adrenaline and fear. He thought of all the neighbors who had seen him help. He tried to call out their names, but his throat was tight. He tried again, voice trembling, asked them, Ask anyone. But Officer Grant put Marcus in the back seat of the cruiser. The door closed with a thud. Marcus banged on the window. Help me, he cried. I didn't do anything wrong. Inside, the heat seemed to surround him. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass, drops of sweat tracing lines down his face. Oh! He watched tears roll down his mother's cheeks as she stood with Mia at her side. The cruiser's engine started. The siren was off, but the flashing blue light glowed in the windows. Mrs. Johnson pounded on the hood with her free hand. No, she shouted. Please, let him go. But the car rolled forward, turning the corner onto Pine Street. Marcus held his breath until it disappeared from view. In the car, Marcus sat with his head against the door. He could hear the soft hum of the engine and the scratch of the radio, strained to hear everything outside, hoping someone would follow. A few moments later, the car stopped. The officers led him into the police station. The building smelled of coffee and rubber mats. The lobby's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Officer Grant released him from the handcuffs and motioned to a metal chair in the center of the room. Sit, he said. Marcus sank into the chair, legs trembling. He rubbed his sore wrists. The handcuffs had left red marks. He tried to calm his breathing, stared at the linoleum floor, shapes in gray and white. He wondered how he would explain everything. He felt alone and scared. After a moment, another officer handed him a cup of water. Marcus clutched it, feeling the cold paper between his fingers. He sipped slowly. Officer Grant leaned against a desk nearby, arms crossed. "Tell me again what happened," he said. His tone was firm, but less hostile than before. Marcus took a deep breath. "I was riding my bike home," he began. His voice was soft. "I saw a car crash into a tree. It was Officer Thompson's patrol car. She was bleeding and pinned under the door. I used my shirt to stop the bleeding and called 911. The firefighters and paramedics came and took her to the hospital." He paused. "That's what happened." The officer's face remained unreadable. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he said, "We got a different call from someone saying they saw you hitting the officer. They say you attacked her." Marcus's heart sank. "They are wrong," he said. "I never hit her. I helped her." His voice cracked. He swallowed. "You can check the 911 call. You can talk to the neighbors." Officer Grant's partner stepped into the room and placed a stack of photos on the desk. "These came from a witness camera," he said. The photos showed a dark figure crouched beside the patrol car, the officer lying on the ground. The figure's face was hard to see. Marcus looked at the photos. He recognized his jersey on the ground next to the car, but in the picture, the figure blended into the shadows. He pointed. "That's me," he said. "But the camera can't see my face clearly." Officer Grant's partner nodded. "We'll look into it," he said. He left the room, closing the door behind him. Officer Grant remained. Marcus felt a fresh wave of fear. He was trapped by a mistake. He thought of his mother and Mia waiting outside. He thought of the dozens of neighbors who had seen the truth. He tried to find hope in their memory. He realized he had to stay calm. If he stayed angry, he would lose control. He drew in a slow breath and said, "Please, I'm telling the truth." Officer Grant leaned forward. "We'll check everything," he said. "In the meantime, you'll remain here until we sort it all out." He pushed off the desk and walked to the door, opened it a crack. "You can see your family later today," he said. Then he closed the door and locked it. Marcus sat alone in the room. The chair felt hard under him. The fluorescent lights made him wince. He curled his hands into fists. He closed his eyes and thought of the crushed car window and the officer's pale face. He remembered how she had held his hand. He held on to that memory. He would need courage for whatever came next. Outside, the town began to whisper of injustice and fear. News cameras would arrive. Social media posts would swirl. But inside that cold room, Marcus waited with steady resolve. He would prove his innocence. He would show that he had been the hero, not the villain. And he would hold on to hope, even as the hours stretched on around him. ChatGPT said. Marcus sat on the hard chair as the minutes ticked by like slow raindrops. The fluorescent light above him hummed quietly, and the air smelled faintly of cleaning solution. He felt the cool metal beneath his thighs and the rough fabric of his shirt against his skin. His wrists ached where the handcuffs had been. But the marks had faded under the nurse's care after his release from the brief medical check. His heart still pounded with worry and a simmering anger at how quickly things had turned against him. In the lobby outside, word of Marcus's arrest spread fast. A local reporter named Jenna Clark got wind of the story and rushed to the police station with her camera crew, set up near the entrance, her voice loud and clear as she called into her microphone. Breaking news in Maplewood. 16-year-old Marcus Johnson, hailed as a hero for saving Officer Elena Thompson's life, was arrested moments later on charges of assaulting the same officer. His family and neighbors demand answers. Words echoed in Marcus's mind. Wondered if anyone would believe his side of the story. Across town, Mrs. Johnson sat in her small living room, wrapped in a soft blanket. Mia, Marcus's little sister, cuddled close by with a stuffed rabbit in her lap. The TV was on, showing Jenna's report. Their neighbor, Mr. Lee, a kind man, who owned the corner store, visited often to bring them sandwiches and water. He sat quietly on the chair across from them, listening to Mrs. Johnson's low sobs. Mrs. Johnson's phone buzzed, non-stop with calls from friends and family who offered prayers and asked if she was okay. She answered each call with a trembling, voice telling them they have him in that cold room. They accuse him of a crime he did not commit. Meanwhile, Reverend Harris, who led the small Baptist church down the street, heard about Marcus while leading a prayer meeting. The church elders gathered, reading emails and social media posts. Reverend Harris stood at the pulpit and spoke with calm authority. "Our young brother Marcus acted from the heart," he said. "He saved a life. Let us not turn our backs on him now. I want to organize a prayer vigil tonight at 7. We will stand together for truth and justice." The congregation nodded, tears in their eyes. They pledged to come and bring candles, signs, and voices raised in prayer. Back at the station, Marcus watched the door anxiously. Every time it opened, he thought it might be the officer who would finally hear him. Instead, it was only Officer Grant or another uniformed desk sergeant, each offering polite but distant questions. "What time did you leave school? What did you wear? Did you know the officer before the crash?" Marcus repeated his answers with growing frustration, but kept his tone calm. He knew getting angry would only make him look more guilty. An older man with a suit and briefcase entered the station and met with Mrs. Johnson in a small conference room. He introduced himself softly as Mr. Ellis, the family's attorney. His voice was steady and kind. "Mrs. Johnson, I will do everything I can," he said. "We need to get the body cam footage, the 911 call logs, and any security cameras from neighbors. We will ask for bail or release on your son's behalf. We have to build a strong case quickly." Mrs. Johnson nodded, relief and worry filling her eyes. She handed him notes she had written down, names of neighbors who saw the rescue, phone numbers, times her own recollection. Mr. Ellis patted her hand. "We will fight for Marcus." Around noon, reporters and camera crews gathered outside. The station's tall gray walls. The police chief, Chief Ramirez, stepped onto the steps, adjusting his uniform cap. He raised one hand for silence. Cameras clicked. People held up their phones, recording every word. "I understand the community's concern," Chief Ramirez began, voice measured. "We received conflicting witness reports. We have reviewed initial evidence and are continuing a full investigation. We promise transparency and fairness. We ask for patience while we ensure the correct course of action." Some in the crowd murmured, others shouted questions. Marcus's mother and Mia watched the press conference through a small opening in the fence. Mia held her mother's hand tightly as Mrs. Johnson whispered, "He'll be okay, sweetheart." While all this happened, the local high school buzzed with tension. Marcus's classmates gathered in small groups by lockers and hallways. Wore t-shirts reading, "I believe Marcus." Others shook their heads, confused. At lunch, a group of friends wrote messages on a poster board, "Thank you, Marcus," and Top left it near the main gate. They passed around water bottles and snacks, determined to support him. One friend, Jordan, recorded a short video on his phone. "Hey everyone, this is Jordan. If you saw what Marcus did, share your story online with #RealHeroMarcus. Let's show them the truth." Within minutes, the hashtag began to trend locally, shared by dozens of students and families. Inside the station, a detective named Sergeant Alvarez entered the room with a folder. He was known for his even temperament and careful work. He sat across from Marcus and slid the folder toward him. "We have the 911 transcript here," he said. "We also got one of the neighbors' camera footage, but nothing clearly shows your face reaching in or out. You need to help us understand what happened exactly." He opened the transcript and began reading aloud the part where the young caller reported an injured officer at Cedar Lane and Pine Street. Marcus watched as the sergeant's eyes narrowed. "You did make that call, right?" the sergeant asked. Marcus nodded. "That was me," he said. "I called. My number should be in the records." He gave a shaky laugh. "I'm not hiding from that." Sergeant Alvarez paused and then pitched the folder closed. "All right," he said. "Going to look into it myself. If what you say is true, we will clear this up. But until then, you stay here." He stood and walked out, leaving Marcus alone again. Marcus slumped in his chair, exhausted by the waiting and worrying. Hours later, evening settled over Maplewood. The sun's last rays tinted the sky pink. Reverend Harris's congregation gathered under tall oaks near the town square. They lit white candles, the small flames flickering in a gentle breeze. Neighbors, students, teachers, and church members stood side by side, holding signs that read "Stand for Justice" and "Free Marcus Johnson." The reporter Jenna Clark wandered through the crowd, asking people why they were there. One woman said softly, "I saw Marcus help that officer. He is a hero," a teacher said. "This is about truth. We can't let fear blind us." Marcus's art teacher, who had taught him kindness and respect, held up a candle and said into the camera, "He's the bravest student I know." In the police station that same night, Mr. Ellis arrived with a court order in hand and the 911 call recording ready on his phone. He met with Chief Ramirez in the chief's office. The chief listened as Mr. Ellis played the clear voice of Marcus, calling for help. He then showed a map with exact times and locations. Finally, he showed text messages from Officer Thompson's partner, thanking whoever helped the officer. Chief Ramirez sat back, eyes serious. He said, "You've made a strong case. I will order Marcus's release immediately." Relief washed over Mr. Ellis's face. "Thank you," he said. "This boy deserves to go home." Meanwhile, at the vigil, news spread that the chief would make an announcement soon. The crowd held their breath as Reverend Harris invited everyone to pray together. They bowed their heads, and the soft chorus of voices rose into the night. Marcus's name echoed in each prayer. Candles flickered under the dark sky, a beacon of hope and solidarity. On the other side of town, Officer Thompson, recovering in the hospital, heard about the vigil and the arrest. She spoke with the hospital chaplain, telling him, "The boy saved my life. I want to meet him." She dictated a short message to her partner. "Find Marcus Johnson. Bring him to the hospital when it's safe." The chaplain nodded and promised to help. Back at the station, Sergeant Alvarez saw the court order and called Marcus's cell. He opened the door and said, "Marcus, you're free to go." Marcus looked up, stunned. He rubbed his eyes and pushed the chair back. His legs wobbled as he stood. He walked through the door and into a brief meeting room where his mother Mia and Mr. Ellis waited. Mrs. Johnson ran forward, tears streaming, and hugged him tightly. Mia threw her arms around his waist and buried her face in his shirt. Marcus felt a warm wave of relief and love wash over him, pushing out the fear and anger. Together, they walked into the late evening air. The streets were quiet now, but Marcus knew the town had not forgotten him. The injustice of his arrest and the courage of his rescue would shape his community forever. He looked at his mother and sister, at Mr. Ellis, and whispered, "Thank you all." Mrs. Johnson held his hand. Mia looked up at him with wide eyes, and Marcus, exhausted but determined, took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next with truth on his side. ChatGPT said, "The next morning, Maplewood awoke under a soft, pale sun. Birds chirped in the trees outside the police station as Marcus Johnson walked up the front steps with his mother and his attorney, Mr. Ellis, by his side. Word had spread quickly that Chief Ramirez would hold a press conference at 9, and a small crowd of reporters and neighbors gathered in front of the building. Marcus felt a mix of nerves and hope tickle in his chest. He straightened the collar of his shirt and took a deep breath. Chief Ramirez emerged from the station doors, flanked by several officers in crisp uniforms. He motioned for silence, and the murmurs of the crowd stilled. Cameras clicked, and microphones leaned forward. Marcus's mother stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder. Mr. Ellis gave Marcus a reassuring nod. Chief Ramirez cleared his throat and began to speak. "Yesterday evening," the chief said, voice calm and firm, "we arrested a young man, Marcus Johnson, on suspicion of assaulting Officer Elena Thompson. After a full review of evidence, including body camera footage, 911 logs, and security videos, it is clear that Mr. Johnson did not assault the officer. In fact, he performed a life-saving rescue under extraordinary circumstances." He paused as reporters scribbled notes. "On behalf of the Maplewood Police Department, I offer a full apology to Marcus Johnson, his family, and our community for the mistake." Some neighbors let out soft sighs of relief or quietly repeated, "Thank you, Chief." Marcus glanced at his mother. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. She squeezed his shoulder as if to say, "You did it?" Chief Ramirez continued, I also want to acknowledge Officer Thompson, who is recovering at Maplewood General Hospital. Shows her life to Mr. Johnson's quick action and courage. The mention of the officer's name, Marcus felt his heart beat faster. He remembered the blood-soaked t-shirt and the panic in her eyes. After the chief finished, Officer Elena Thompson stepped forward. Though she still walked with a cane, her posture was steady and her uniform pressed. She offered a gentle smile. "I want to say thank you, Marcus," she said, her voice soft but clear. "If not for you, I would not be here today. You saved my life." Her words were simple, but they carried deep warmth. Marcus swallowed and nodded, feeling tears well up. A reporter asked Officer Thompson if she had anything to say about the wrongful arrest. She glanced at Marcus, her eyes kind. "To Marcus, I was told what happened afterward, and I understand mistakes can happen in the heat of the moment. I hope this incident leads to better training and awareness so that other heroes like Marcus can be celebrated, not arrested." "Dude!" Words drew gentle applause from the crowd. Chief Ramirez then outlined new steps for the department. He announced that all officers would undergo bias awareness training and improved communication drills to prevent similar misunderstandings. "We will learn from this," he said. "We'll do better." Some officers nodded in agreement behind him. Following the press conference, Marcus and his family walked down the street toward the hospital, where Officer Thompson was still recuperating. As they passed friendly neighbors waving or offering thumbs up, Marcus felt both gratitude and relief. He carried his backpack in one hand and held his mother's hand with the other. His sister Mia ran ahead, excited to see the officer she admired. Inside the hospital's bright lobby, the chaplain greeted them with a warm nod. A nurse led them down a corridor painted in soft pastel colors. Marcus felt his heart flutter as they approached the room. He remembered how frail Officer Thompson had looked on the pavement, but here she sat up in bed, looking stronger each day. The window beside her bed let in warm morning light. Marcus stepped forward, taking care not to jostle the cart filled with medical supplies. "Officer Thompson," he said quietly, "I'm glad to see you doing better." She patted the empty chair next to her bed. "Please sit," she invited. Mia climbed onto Marcus's lap, hugging him tight. His mother stood by the door, smiling but wiping at her eyes. Officer Thompson reached out and shook Marcus's hand gently. "Thank you again," she said, then added with a gentle laugh, "but I expect you to visit me out of the uniform next time. I might offer you cookies or hot chocolate, but no handcuffs." Marcus laughed too, the tension falling away. They talked about the accident, about how he had felt when he heard the crash, and how he had seen her trapped. He described the moment he pulled her free and called for help. Officer Thompson listened quietly, nodding and squeezing his hand. "I want to do something special to thank you," she said. Marcus shook his head. "You don't have to," he protested softly. "Just being here is enough." She smiled. "You deserve a medal," she replied, "and maybe a scholarship for college. I have spoken with the department. I want to honor your bravery." Marcus's eyes widened. He looked at his mother, who blinked back tears. A few days later, the town organized a small ceremony at the community center. Blue carpet was rolled out and chairs were set up in neat rows. Neighbors filled the seat, students from Marcus's school, church members, and families he had grown up with. Posters reading Maplewood's young hero decorated the walls. A podium stood at the front, draped in the police department's flag. Chief Ramirez stepped to the podium, Officer Thompson seated to his right. Marcus sat in the front row with his family. Reverend Harris stood behind them, holding a banner that read "Justice and Honor for All." The chief welcomed everyone and recapped the events, how Marcus had rescued the officer, the mistake that followed, and the lessons learned. Then he announced, "It is my great honor to present Marcus Johnson with the Medal of Bravery." Clipped the medal onto Marcus's jacket. The medal gleamed in the overhead lights. The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus's cheeks turned pink. He stood to face the audience, shaking slightly as he raised his hand in thanks. He saw Officer Thompson nod and smile. Reporters snapped photos, and parents whispered proudly. The ceremony, neighbors surrounded Marcus with hugs and high fives. His friends hoisted him onto their shoulders, chanting his name. His mother cried tears of joy, and Mia gave him a big kiss on the cheek. Mr. Ellis handed Marcus an envelope containing a scholarship check for a local community college. "Use this for your dreams," he said. Marcus's heart swelled. That evening, Marcus sat on his front porch with his family. The sky glowed in shades of orange and purple as the sun set. Fireflies blinked in the yard. Marcus held the medal carefully in his hands. "I never wanted any of this," he said softly. His mother reached over and squeezed his hand. "You did what was right," she said. "And because of you, our town will be safer and fairer." Marcus smiled at her. Sister Mia hugged him and said, "You're my hero." Marcus laughed. "And you're mine," he replied. They sat quietly, listening to the sounds of the evening crickets chirping, neighbors calling goodnight, the soft hum of cars passing by. Marcus felt a peaceful calm settle over him. In the days that followed, the police department's new training began. Officers gathered in classrooms, learning to listen carefully and check facts before making judgments. Community leaders and police officers met regularly to build trust, sharing meals and stories. The local newspaper ran a series of articles on bias awareness and the importance of seeing each person's side of the story. At school, Marcus returned to his routine. He traded stories with his friends in the hallways, and teachers praised his courage. He started a first aid club, teaching other students how to call 911, make bandages, and help in emergencies. The club met every Thursday after school in the gym, where Marcus demonstrated the same moves he had used on that hot summer evening. One afternoon, as he led a practice session, he looked around at the eager faces of his classmates. He felt proud that something good had grown out of his frightening experience. He realized that courage did not mean being fearless. It meant acting even when you felt afraid. And he knew that speaking up for the truth could change lives. Months later, at the school's awards night, Principal Davis handed Marcus a certificate recognizing his leadership and community service. "Your actions remind us all of the power of kindness and truth," the principal said. The audience rose in applause. Marcus blushed and nodded in thanks. At home that night, Marcus pinned the certificate and his medal on his bedroom wall above his desk. He looked at them as he did his homework, remembering the journey from that crash on Cedar Lane to this moment. He thought of Officer Thompson's gratitude, his family's love, and the town coming together. He felt ready for whatever came next. As he turned off the light and climbed into bed, he whispered, "Good night," to the silent room. Outside, the moon shone brightly, and a gentle breeze rustled the curtains. Marcus closed his eyes, knowing he had grown stronger, and that his story would live on to inspire others. And with that comforting thought, he drifted into a peaceful sleep. The summer evening light filtered through the tall windows of the Maplewood Community Gymnasium as neighbors gathered on folding chairs arranged in neat rows. The air was warm but carried a gentle breeze that rustled the paper signs reading, "Together for Trust and Heroes Among Us." At the front, a long table held a small podium, a microphone, and a neat stack of white envelopes. Marcus Johnson sat in the front row beside his mother and little sister Mia, his medal pinned to his shirt. He could feel the soft hum of conversation rising and falling like a quiet wave. Across from him, people he had known all his life filled the seats. His classmates from the first aid club tried to be as quiet as possible, their eyes shining with pride. Teachers and church members nodded as they recognized him. Even some of the new officers assigned to the department sat in uniform, attentive and respectful. Marcus's heart beat faster, not from fear this time, but from excitement that his town had come together to make sure something good grew out of his story. Chief Ramirez stepped up to the podium and tapped the microphone. "Thank you all for coming," he began, voice steady and warm. "Tonight we gather not just to celebrate a young hero, to strengthen the trust between our police force and our community." He smiled at Marcus, who sat up a little straighter. "First," the chief continued, "I will announce the creation of the Marcus Johnson Scholarship Fund. This fund will support local students who show courage, kindness, and community spirit. The first scholarship will be awarded at next year's graduation ceremony." Marcus felt a rush of pride. His metal weight on his shirt seemed to shine brighter in the soft gym lights. After the chief spoke, Reverend Harris rose from his chair and approached the microphone. He held a candle that flickered gently in the quiet hall. "We light this candle in honor of truth and unity," he said. "May we always remember that mistakes can be corrected when we stand together." He lit the candle and set it down on a small table at the front. The congregation around him bowed their heads for a moment of silence, each person reflecting on the importance of seeing each other's humanity. Next, Marcus's art teacher, Ms. Carter, stepped forward. She held a large folder of drawings created by students in honor of Marcus's bravery. "We wanted to show Marcus how his actions inspired us," she said, smiling. She flipped through the pages, revealing sketches of Marcus pulling the officer from the car, a family standing together, of hands reaching out in kindness. These drawings remind us that art can speak when words fall short. Marcus watched as people in the crowd leaned forward to get a better look. Some whispered, "He really did that, and look how brave he was." When the drawings were passed around, Marcus's little sister Mia tugged on his sleeve. "Your drawing is the best," she whispered, showing him her favorite page where he stood heroically against an orange sky. Marcus knelt beside her and hugged her. "Thank you, Mia," he said softly. She beamed and whispered, "I love you." As the drawings were returned, Chief Ramirez called Officer Thompson to the podium. She stood slowly, steadying herself with her cane. Her uniform looked crisp, and her face held both pride and humility. "I want to share what I learned from Marcus," she said. "In my years of service, I have seen many challenges. But that night, a young man reminded me of something I almost forgot: the power of kindness and quick thinking. Marcus showed me that age and rank do not define heroism. What defines heroism is the choice to help, even when it is hard." The room was silent, every eye on her. Ask all of us to carry Marcus's example into our lives. When you see someone in need, step forward. When you see an injustice, speak up. That is how we build a stronger community. After Officer Thompson spoke, the chief invited community members to share their thoughts. A teacher from Marcus's school stepped up and spoke about how the First Aid Club had grown from 5 students to 20 in just a few weeks. All because of Marcus's leadership. A local business owner said he would donate funds to keep the scholarship alive. A neighbor who had witnessed the crash said, "I almost ran the other way, thinking it was too dangerous to stop. But then I saw Marcus, and I realized I should have been brave too." Each speaker reminded those gathered that courage could take many forms. Finally, Chief Ramirez returned to the podium. "Tonight we move forward with respect, honesty, and understanding," he said. "I ask all officers here to remember the name Marcus Johnson, not as a case number, but as a neighbor, a student, a hero." He paused. "And I ask all citizens to remember that trust is built when we listen and learn from each other." He raised his hand in a gesture of unity, and the crowd raised their hands to meet his. The formal part of the meeting ended, and people stood to mingle, shake hands, and share warm smiles. Marcus drifted through small groups, hugging his friends, thanking teachers, and talking with neighbors. Some asked him how it felt to see the scholarship in his name. Others congratulated him on the new police training that would include lessons from his story. He answered each question with a smile, feeling both shy and proud. Later, Marcus slipped outside to the small patio behind the gym. The night air was cooler here, and he leaned against the railing, looking up at the starlit sky. Akema ran to him, carrying 2 bottles of lemonade. She handed him one, then dashed back to the gym to gather her friends. Marcus took a long drink, savoring the sugary coolness. The stars felt calm and steady overhead, as if watching over him. His mother joined him quietly, wrapping an arm around his shoulder. "You did well tonight," she said softly. Marcus looked at her, his heart full. "We all did," he replied. "This was a town coming together." She kissed the top of his head. "And it's only the beginning," she said. A few weeks later, life in Maplewood settled into a new normal. The First Aid Club met every Thursday, growing to include students from different grades. Marcus taught his classmates how to apply bandages, how to check for breathing, and how to call 911 calmly. The school principal allowed them to use a classroom. For their practice, and older students came to help. The club became a source of confidence for its members, who now felt prepared to help others in emergencies. At the police station, the new training program began. Officers worked with community leaders to practice scenarios that required calm communication. They learned to verify information before making arrests and to speak kindly even in tense moments. The department's newsletter published articles about bias awareness, featuring interviews with Marcus and Officer Thompson. The tone of the newsletter was honest and hopeful, emphasizing learning over blame. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to his summer routine. He spent mornings at basketball camp, afternoons helping his mother in the garden, and evenings reading books under the porch light. He wore his medal when he gave presentations at schools or community events. Sometimes after a long day, he would sit on his bed and look at the scholarship envelope tacked on his wall next to a photo of the crash site. It's taken long after it was cleared. He remembered the fear and adrenaline, but also the warmth of help arriving and the strength of his own resolve. One quiet afternoon, Officer Thompson appeared at Marcus's front door. She held a small box of cookies wrapped in pink paper. Marcus's mother invited her in, and they all sat at the kitchen table. Officer Thompson smiled and handed the box to Marcus. "I promised you cookies instead of handcuffs," she said with a wink. Marcus laughed and opened the box. Inside were sugar cookies shaped like stars, each iced with bright colors. Mia's eyes sparkled as she reached for one. They talked for a while about his plans for the FAL courses he wanted to take, his hopes for college, and the next steps for the first aid club. Officer Thompson told stories of her own youth and how someone had helped her once when she was in trouble. Marcus listened, feeling a new connection to her beyond the uniform. As the sun set and the warm glow of the kitchen light stretched across the room, Marcus felt a deep sense of belonging. He thought of the crash, the handcuffs, the loneliness of the cell, and the community's love that brought him back. He realized that bravery could change hearts and heal divisions. He saw that one person's act of kindness could ripple outward, touching thousands of lives. That night, before he went to sleep, Marcus wrote in his journal, "I learned that speaking the truth matters more than being right. I learned that kindness can be the strongest shield. And I learned that when we help each other, we build a better world." He closed the journal and placed it on his nightstand. The metal beside it caught the moonlight through the window, a quiet reminder of a summer when a boy's courage saved a life and transformed a town forever.